Africa has put forward.
We are aware that South Africa is the last country to take the G20 presidency in what is called a 20-year cycle, right? So with that in mind, there's a natural 20-year G20 review, right? Would South Africa then be part of that, putting that review together, and how far is South Africa with that?
Yeah, you have correctly said it. They call it the G20 at 20 years. It's a reflection on key achievements and the way forward. So this particular responsibility is unique because there is no other G20 presidency that has ever been tasked with this, whether it was a 5-year or 10-year or 15-year. But when it comes to this at a 20-year, they are saying, South Africa, lead us, show us what are the achievements of G20 in terms of the resolutions. I think it's important to mention that G20 resolutions, whenever they are taken, at times they do not get enforced at a certain level. So it depends on the presidency at that time, the ability to pull the resources and pull the consensus among the member states, so that when those resolutions are taken, they get to be implemented in a way that achieves some certain targets. So South Africa has been given this responsibility, and from our research point of view, when we speak to those who are in charge of G20, they are saying so far they are halfway through there when it comes to this review, because key issues in those reviews, the issue of the structure of the leadership of G20. We know that they are using a troika system, which means there is no permanent secretariat. Instead, they are using previous presidency, current presidency, and the next presidency of G20 working together. So in this case, it is Brazil, which is the previous presidency, South Africa, and then United States. But they are saying if they were to have a permanent secretariat, what does that mean for the G20, and what structure will it take, and in which form, and in terms of the funding and the financing, and what impact will it bring in terms of the implementation of the resolutions of G20. So these are all the assessments that South Africa is leading. But remember, this is not a South Africa's project. It is a G20 project. So South Africa is consulting with all its members in G20, particularly working with these troika countries to say, how do we then ensure that the system of leadership of G20 is sustainable going forward?
Thabiso?
Well, Ashraf, very satisfied with the points that have been discussed so far, and I think this is where we have to wrap up our G20 coverage.
Okay, perfect. Thank you as always, Thabiso, and certainly appreciate your time with our specialist researcher at SABC News, and that's Velimseni Intiyane. Thank you for that. Right now, of course, part of this unique collaboration between SAFM and Channel Africa, and we'll do this every Thursday from 4:15 all the way up to the G20. There is, however, some comments from you. Let's pick it up.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the team. This is Miranda. It's very strange that this professor guy is talking about the change of name from South Africa to Azania. How is that going to help us as people? We are suffering. We have no job. The joblessness is over 40%. People are dying. Crime is out of control. Poverty, diseases, roads have potholes. There is no service delivery. How is changing the name going to bring back consciousness in our minds? We are angry right now.
Okay, got that. And certainly your views are reflected by many people. Some people have different views on this. Let's pick up another.
Ashraf, I just want to know, when we change South African name to Azania, well, after we changed the name, will our kids, the unemployed youth, will they get jobs after that name is being changed? Or is there anything that's changing? Because we like to change names without people, whilst people are hungry and so on. Why don't we wait so that the economic must be right, and then the people have got jobs, and then change the names? I don't know. What does the apartheid names do to us? Does it oppress us? But I just feel the same. I just feel sorry for the youth that's not working. This is SS from Bloemfontein.
Well, thanks for that, SS. Well, I'll tell you what, certainly just as someone who's listening to the initial chat with Pitika and Tuli, and we'll chat to the ATM representative later on, I think I'm trying to look out for a truly compelling reason why the country needs a name change now, and I'm sure you possibly trying to do the same thing. But first things first, it's 4:30. Here's the news headlines with Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. We start with breaking news. Former Deputy President David Mabuza has died at the age of 65. He will have more details as they unfold. The City of Johannesburg Council has re-elected Margaret Arnold from the African Independent Congress as its Speaker. The AIC candidate was elected by 137 votes, and the Umkhonto weSizwe Party Chief Whip Colleen Makhubele says they're working at restoring the party's image. This after reports that there is a petition doing the rounds among MK Party MPs for Makhubele's removal. A full update follows at the top of the hour with the Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand, an earlier crash before New Road has been cleared, but traffic is still slow moving. In KZN, the M7 St. John's Avenue is slow moving through central Pinetown, and the N3 eastbound in Ashburton has a stationary truck after Market Road. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend, and the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Milner Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Jimmy, we have a national women's team called Banyana, and they are that tournament's imminent.
Yes, it's
defending
actually
champions.
Yeah, it's starting on the 5th of July, and they're looking to defend their title. And Banyana captain Amkhela Mutau says that they plan to break past Ghana in the 2024 Women's Africa Cup of Nations opener is definitely coming together. The two nations will face off on Monday to kick off their Group C contest. Speaking during a training session in Casablanca, Mutau says that they have done their assessment on their opponents and believe that they are ready to resume their WAFCON title defense.
A video analyst that comes into that's in camp with us, Thabo Mnyamane, and he's currently helping us with that. But for now, our analysis is more on the team and not on individuals, because you get into individuals later, at the later stage when you are closer to the game. That's when you will pinpoint who the strongest players are. But for example, I've played against the likes of Jennifer Kuju, that's a midfielder from Ghana. She's quite good, but for me, again, the main focus is on the team, because that's the one thing that we want to break down and be able to win again.
Well, it's 2 days until the WAFCON, and today the spotlight is on Hilda Makhaya, also known as the breadwinner. She etched her name in the Banyana history by scoring 2 goals that took the side to the 2022 WAFCON title in their 2-1 success over hosts Morocco in the final. She's arguably the best finisher in the side and definitely a real danger in and around the 6-yard box. She played in Sweden, South Korea, Mexico and the United States, having her international debut back in 2018. She currently plays in Mexico. And just a fun fact about WAFCON, just 2 days ago, actually, CAF has unveiled the new trophy, and it represents unity, progress and excellence. Meanwhile, Magezi FC have announced the appointment of John Maduka as their new head coach of the 2025-26 season. The 54-year-old takes over from Owen De Gama, who parted ways with Dikwena Tsametsi last week. Maduka was last in charge of Royal AM before the club was dissolved midway through last season, following club boss Sean Keys' financial troubles with SARS. Then SuperSport International has officially confirmed the sale of Betway Premiership side SuperSport United to Siwelele FC. This deal brings an end to an era for one of the most storied football clubs in the PSL. Matsatsansa have recently been under financial constraints following the decline in a multi-choice subscribers, a group that owned SuperSport United. And Siwelele FC chairman Calvin Lajon says that they are privileged to have been given the responsibility of continuing with a rich winning tradition in the PSL. Then in rugby, Andre Pollard says that fierce competition for the Springbok number 10 jersey pushes him to raise his game as he prepares to face Italy at Loftus Versfeld on Saturday. The 31-year-old is back in South Africa, having signed a 2-year deal with the Vodacom Bulls, and he's going to run out in his old home ground in Pretoria for the first of the two tests against the Azuri. Pollard is vying for the starting fly-half spot with 23-year-old Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu, a generational talent with 8 test caps, and 27-year-old Mani Lebek, who featured at the 2023 World Cup and has 19 caps.
Back, you guys, been unreal. It's been tough. It's been a tough few weeks of training, but it's been great. Listen, it's always such a privilege and an honor to be part of a squad. Whether you play or not, you just want to be part of this group. And it's been, like I said, tough, but it's been great. And we're really excited for the start of the season. It's going to be good. Yeah, Loftus is, like you said, very special place dear to my heart. It's different than any other place in the world to play rugby, and I think being the home side's definitely favours you playing at Loftus. But listen, I've had some great memories there over the years. Probably say one of my best memories would be we actually lost the game versus the All Blacks in 2018, but the atmosphere and the vibe that day was just incredible. And even though we didn't come out on the winning side, it's a game that stuck with me for a while.
Moving on to cricket, Australia captain Pat Cummins confirmed that batsman Steve Smith will return for the second test against the West Indies. Cummins said that Smith had recovered sufficiently from a dislocated finger to resume his position at number 4 for the match starting today. And Smith dislocated his right little finger in last month's World Test Championship final and will be required to wear a splint for 5 weeks. In motorsport, George Russell heads into his home British Grand Prix this weekend, haunted by rumours and unconfirmed reports that fierce rival and 4-time world champion Max Verstappen has accepted an offer to replace him next year. As Formula One returns to the circuit that hosted its first world championship race 75 years ago, the 27-year-old may be caught on the horns of an extraordinary dilemma as he seeks a 5th career victory to secure his seat and his future with Mercedes. If he wins and overhauls Verstappen in the driver's title race, he may in so doing allow the Dutchman, also 27, to trigger an exit clause in his Red Bull contract, which is due to run to 2028. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
A quick comment. So, we spoke about Supersport United being sold, and there were two questions. The new team name, somebody asked me, what does the name mean and why not Bloom Celtic? And I think it came through that the ownership of the name resides with others, so it can't be. So the colours are Celtic, clearly Celtic. Why the name? What is that name? Why was it chosen then?
Remember the Bloemfontein Celtic yesterday, Ngobile explained that it's actually owned. The rights of Bloemfontein Celtic, the name is owned and therefore it cannot be used. That's why they had to default to getting another name, which is Siwelele.
And any significance why they chose Siwelele in terms of any...
We've always known Bloemfontein Celtic
as nickname,
Siwelele.
Right?
That nickname,
so that nickname is important. So they've gone the nickname route, which also implies the same thing.
Yeah. There's also rumors that the chairman of Siwelele is actually... this is rumors, right? Unconfirmed rumors that he is the stepson to Gayton McKenzie. Interesting.
Okay. Listen, talking about stepsons and step clubs here, I don't know. Mike Sharman has just tweeted. Now, Mike Sharman's very much in the media media marketing space. He just knows it, and he said, soon Sundowns, Chiefs, and Pirates will be the only club brands left in the PSL. And he said brands, okay, club brands left in the PSL. Cannot build a fan platform with inconsistency in brand and team domicile. I think something we've touched on already.
Yeah.
Right, more sport from Tumi. No name change with Tumi, by the way, coming up in an hour's time.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets now with Makwe Masilela, who's the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, you've got lots of news locally and globally, right? Makwe, do I have you there?
Yes, Ashraf. Good afternoon to you and to the listeners.
Good afternoon.
Ashraf, we started the session looking forward to the jobs numbers from the U.S. and Trump's big, beautiful bill voting. If U.S. employment softens and induces the Fed to lower rates, that will be a positive. But if it softens too much, that will be a negative for growth and profits. And market participants remained on the edge over the progress towards more trade deals. And the weak economic print from China had no impact today. And concerns about a mounting U.S. deficits and the details of Trump's bill may weigh stronger on the bond investors' mind than the jobs report. And when released, the U.S. payrolls increased more than expected in June, plunging the odds for a July Fed interest rate cut to zero. As the report removed the worries over the labor market, the dollar regained some of its earlier losses. Hence, the likes of the rand gave back some of their earlier gains. And locally, our private sector activity fell to 50.1 in June. That is from 50.8 in May. But companies hired more people even as business confidence fell to its lowest level in nearly 4 years. Oil prices are lower, reversing sharp gains from the prior session. That's after data showing an unexpected increase in U.S. inventories, raising concerns over sluggish fuel demand. And OPEC, which is meeting over the weekend, is expected to raise supply by over 400,000 barrels per day as from August. Brent crude is down 0.6% at $68 a barrel, and the zero expectations of rate cuts in July dented the yellow metals appeal as opportunity cost of holding gold stays elevated, and a stronger dollar is not helping the situation. And we've seen that now gold was down 0.7% at 3,332, platinum down 3.4% at 1,372, and better than expected U.S. job numbers removed recession fears and lifted the global stocks with the JSE up 0.4%, and our financials are leading the pack. They ranked only firm to 0.1% against the dollar 17.53, 23.94 against the pound, and 20.64 against the euro.
Okay, got all of that. So, Makwe, thanks for that. We'll connect with you again tomorrow. Don't forget the SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Moyaha coming up from 6 to 7 this evening. And looking forward to that.
This week on Off Pitch Goals, Kaizer Chiefs greats and Bafana Bafana 2010 FIFA World Cup stars René Solonyane and Siphiwe Chabalala take on the food and beverage industry. The legendary duo own one of Soweto's most vibrant hangout spots and invite us to be the tastemakers of the inner workings of their establishment. Streaming on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturday, 5 July at 8:30 p.m. Off Pitch Goals, where we showcase how the stars score in business. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Join us for this year's fundraiser, Jazz for Young People concert at the National School of the Arts on the 26th of July. This unique event, perfect for families, is a powerful celebration of youth, creativity and community spirit. So bring the whole family to enjoy a wonderful day of world-class jazz curated by Zoe Mudicha, featuring the Parktown Girls Band, Tshwane School of Music, The Real DJ Zandi, Kutlo Taro Jazz Band, and many others. Tickets are just 80 Rand and 50 Rand for kids under 12 via Quicket. Jazz for Young People is proudly brought to you by Standard Bank Joy of Jazz.
Africa's most decorated women's national team, the Super Falcons, are searching for maximum points in their Group E opening match, while Eagles of Carthage want to emphasize that North Africa is their territory. This is the Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Witness Nigeria up against Tunisia this Sunday, 6 July at 6 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and S3. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Ryan, we're going to certainly get to your thoughts on the issues we've raised today, whatever it is that moves the National Pulse. I'd like to hear from you. And we'll get to that shortly. In the meantime, of course, you do know this now that we had this breaking news of the former Deputy President, David Mabuza, having passed on. And it could well be that you've engaged with him. You may want to just share some of your thoughts about that person as well. And we'll certainly take your calls on that too, right? Okay, in the meantime, it's been a busy few days for the MK party. So the party itself briefed the media on recent parliamentary developments. The MKP's parliamentary leader, Dr. John Tlhophe, and the party chief whip, Colleen Makubela, addressed the media. So what we've done, we picked out some key clips, some highlights that we think are particularly important for you to hear. The first one is the MK's Deputy President, John Tlhophe, commenting on the JSC recommending Gauteng Judge President Dustin Mlambo for the Deputy Chief Justice, something, as you know, we had that conversation earlier with Fassia Hassan, who's on that JSC commission, and you can listen to that podcast as well. But this is what the MK party said.
Issue of the JSC recommending Justice Dustin Mlambo, we as the MK party, I personally wrote a letter, we objected. We were conducted as the opposition. We objected to him. I made it clear that he should not be appointed as such, right? We objected. Obviously, politics is about numbers. I don't even sit on the JSC. He was recommended. Is something that I cannot change. But our official position as the MK party, we objected to his candidature, and I gave detailed reasons, right, which are not relevant for this purpose. Thank you. I can deal with the next question. Issue of the JSC.
Okay, and that next question, and he responded to that, was that he had to respond to claims of tension between him, meaning Dr. John Tlhophe, as well as the MK party leader, Jacob Zuma.
With regard to Mpumalanga, there is no animosity whatsoever between me and President Zuma, right, at all. I think that emanated from an affidavit that was submitted to court. And the animosity is created by the media. But he is reported as having said in the affidavit he was not aware of the legal team that I appointed to take over from there. So don't take it with respect out of context. That can never be regarded as, what's the term? That can never be regarded as evidence of any hostility and or tension. I engage regularly with President Zuma on matters of mutual interest. Remember, I'm his deputy. I haven't sensed anything. So media, please desist from making stories that don't exist. There is no animosity between President Zuma and I.
And he also had to comment on the point whether there was, in fact, a petition, a letter petition, that is, for Colleen Makubela to be removed as the chief whip. This is what Dr. John Tlhophe said.
The head of the party, I'm the party leader here in government. Here in Parliament. If any complaint is made against any staff member or any MP, it's brought to me because I'm ultimately responsible. There is no letter, there is no petition in terms of which MPs are calling for the head of the chief whip. This is a figment of someone's imagination, quite frankly. I would have been the first person to receive that petition. Obviously, if the petition is against me, I wouldn't expect MPs to give it to me. They would probably give it to the chief whip, who would in turn forward it to the president, who is sitting in Nkandla comfortably now. So the suggestion that there is a letter here, that there is a petition here against the chief whip is quite frankly nonsense. It is nonsense. There is no such. I have not received it. As a matter of fact, I asked Ubaba as late as last night to President Zuma. There is no such letter. Colleen Makubela remains a chief whip here. She is very good. She is very effective as a chief whip. she is good. I'm not undermining the predecessors, but she is the kind of a chief whip that we need now to take the party forward. I confirm, therefore, categorically that there is no petition against the chief whip, and she remains our chief whip. She will remain as such until she is recalled strategically for one reason or the other. I wasn't born a party leader myself. I could be recalled one day in the interest of the party to move forward. So if she is recalled, anyone who is recalled, it is in the interest of the party to move forward. Normally people are recalled from one position and redeployed, even within a party. It happens the party is new. Don't judge us with reference to parties which have been around for a very long time, like the ANC and the DA. We are new, and we have attracted members from all walks of life. Others are coming with clean hands, others are coming with a bad motive. So changes are important, and they are inevitable. We don't redeploy people just simply because we don't like their faces, but people are redeployed for strategic reasons.
Okay, hopefully that does that clear things up for you? Well, you can comment on that on the MK position in terms of their media briefing. And you know the story, you can call in live. I'll take your calls just now, 086 000 2032. And then the option for WhatsApp, text or voice note messages, 0614 104 107. And if you're tweeting, then just use that hashtag, The National Pulse, when you tag us, SAFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. I'll get to you because you're on the Pulse in a moment.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. You are listening to The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
I tell you what, I mean, just about every day, you know, we cover stories, we have conversations between myself and Temba and Keys. The production team is like, okay, that's the stories we're going to cover. And we have our own sense of what we think is the most important that needs to be heard today, right? And inevitably, you know, 2-3 of those issues dominate the call-ins, okay, which is the barometer of what you feel. And then some days it's like 80-90% of just one thing. Today it's 90% of one thing, the issues of the Republic of Azania. Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf. These name changes continue to be a drain on the fiscus, and yet they do not add any value in terms of solving the current crisis in the country, especially in terms of economy. Thank you, John Cape Town.
Thanks for that, John. Do others concur with that? Or is it a case of, come on, this is not about jobs. This is a principled issue that we as a country need to take?
Name change again of the country. Man, what is it going to do? How is it going to benefit us? We've got very serious issues to attend to and change. Change the poverty of people. Change the unemployment of the young people. Nah, not names, man. Nah, even the changings of the street names and stuff like that. Man, really? Is it that much of a necessary project? Nah, man, Ashraf.
I must say my gut feeling is I'm okay with names of, you know, places or streets that are absolutely derogatory or effectively honor, you know, apartheid South Africa in its very literal sense, right? Things that are fairly generic, like say South Africa, I'd be less of an issue on that. Here's another.
South Africa is the only country where you find people starving to death, then you find useless politicians deciding that a change of name will ultimately solve the problems of the poor. Whether you call it South Africa or what, up until you resolve the issue of foreign nationals, nothing will be resolved. If these politicians want to remain relevant for the next coming local government election, they need to resolve the issue of unemployment as a result of foreign nationals.
Well, you see, that's a theme I've certainly seen today. There's been certainly people initially were very supportive of the position of a name change, and they are definitely so. And we'll chat to the ATM representative, the leader, in fact, Vuyo Zungula, coming up just now, right, after 5 o'clock. But in the meantime, there's many people like, how does this effectively change our lives for the better. Let's get to Randburg now in Johannesburg. Bruce, go for it. Hi, Bruce.
Yeah, Ashraf. Ashraf, I don't think it's necessary to change the name. Despite what ATM is actually saying, the majority of African countries have not changed their names. Only 10 countries have changed their names, and that's because the name had a direct European name in it, or it was linked to someone from Europe. So, for example, Rhodesia was named after Rhodes. They changed it to Zimbabwe. German Southwest Africa had the name German in it, so they obviously changed the name to Namibia. The name South Africa is a geographical name, and it's a neutral name. So I don't see why the necessary to change the name.
Okay, I think you made your point very, very clear, Bruce, in Randburg. And I think that's what many people think. That's like, if it's completely derogatory, that's one thing. If it's otherwise a name that effectively identifies as a colonial power in that sense, or linked to that, that could be problematic, like as is mentioned, German West Africa, for example. But beyond that, is that like the biggest issue? Just think about that. Stephen in fact, we get to Stephen in a moment. So Klebo in Mandeni, go for it. Also on the issue of Azania, what's your point?
Ashraf, how are you?
I'm very good indeed. Right.
I'm good. I think my point is contrary to many of the callers.
Okay.
I am for the change of the name Ashraf. I think changing the name will give us identity in South Africa. Of course, what they are saying with the issue of the economy and employment, it's true. But either changing or not changing the name doesn't impact on the status of the economy, but we need to have an identity as the country. South Africa, it's as the result of what happened in 1910, the Union of South Africa, and it set a direction. So we are a country without any identity. I think it's important of us, but it needs not to end on changing the name. We must therefore also influence the history. Let's make people understand what does it mean to be Azania. So that people will identify with the name. But I am for the change of the name.
Okay, I got that. So there you are. That's another issue. That is the identity that important in terms of your historical identity? Or in fact, is South Africa as a country that actually emerged? Because when we look at the history and say which country fought off apartheid and moved on and emerge as a democracy, that country will be called South Africa. So some may say, in fact, the South African identity is very, very strong. But obviously, I hear in Klebo who may say something very, very differently. Stephen in Durban, what's your point?
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Thank
good
you for
indeed.
taking my call.
Pleasure.
Thank you for taking my call.
Pleasure.
I can hear from my different callers there. The change of name to Azania, yes, I can understand the history to say South Africa previously it was called Azania. But now look at the cost versus the benefit. Where is going to add value to the youth of South Africa, to the unemployment that is here in South Africa, to the shortage of water and electricity? There are so many things that can take that money gonna use to change the names of South Africa to be Azania, to be utilized into these material things. Look at PRASA. Look at PRASA, what is happening at PRASA. Look at Transnet, what is happening at Transnet. Look at SAA, focusing on the name. Yes, I can understand others. They say it's what you call, it's a true identity. That is history, of which that history will remain. But for us, taking money and waste it to other things, whereas there are so many things that should be changed. That's my take. Thank you so much.
Okay, got that. Thank you for that, Stephen in Durban. Anybody else has a completely... So we've got two views. Why it's important to have the name change. It's an absolute break with the past and moving back to a spiritual connection, as Pikita Ntuli said. Or, hey, stick with South Africa. It's what we know, and why waste our time and money and resources when, in fact, the biggest change that needs to happen is the standards of living of the people that live in South Africa. Is there another way to look at it? John in Joburg, go for it.
Hi, Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, good indeed. What's your point?
Yeah, Ashraf, it is quite surprising. Name change has got nothing to do with jobs. It's got nothing to do with fixing potholes and all those things. This is an issue for affirmation, John. Sorry, Ashraf. And the truth of the matter is, as an African child, when you wake up in the morning, you go or you get on, whatever, Van Riebeck Street, you go see a white teacher, you go see all these things, and then in Johannesburg, right? It's all the issue of affirmation. This is about consciousness. It's got nothing to do with jobs. If you want to affirm us and dignity, there are some They have to change. You cannot live in an African country that looks like and sounds like a European land. And when you talk about assigning people, and people talk about jobs, I mean, those things.
Okay, I got that. We're going to move on because it's on to news time. So, yeah, it's not directly linked to jobs, but the point is both people say both jobs gives you a sense of dignity and a name also gives you a sense of dignity. But the question is, think about this, is the South African name or the name South Africa at the moment like that derogatory to those that feel it sends out the wrong message, although we've embraced it in democracy for 30 odd years, or not? I mean, I'd welcome further comments. Do listen to the conversation coming up with the ATM leader at about 5:20. But let's get the news now. Here's Greg House at 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Ashraf, former deputy president, passes away and minister slams killings at institutions of higher learning. Good day to you. The Secretary-General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, has on his X account sent his party's condolences to the family of the former deputy president, David Mabuza. He passed away today at the age of 65. He paid tribute to Mabuza, saying he dedicated his life to the service of the people of South Africa. He says Mabuza was a committed cadre who carried the values of unity, discipline and transformation from his struggle days to his leadership as the Mpumalanga Premier and later to his role as Deputy President of the country. The City of Johannesburg's council has re-elected Margaret Arnolds from the African Independent Congress as its Speaker. This follows last week's removal of Action SA's Nobuhle Mthembu through a motion of no confidence. Arnolds previously held the Speaker role before being appointed as the city's mayoral committee member for finance. Acting City Manager Akiba Kekana announced the results of the council vote.
The three candidates, the first candidate is Alex Christians, received 68 votes. The second candidate is Margaret Sharon Arnolds, received 137 votes. So this in itself empowers the presiding officer to declare Margaret Sharon Arnolds as the Speaker of the Council of the City of Johannesburg Metropolitan Municipality.
The Minister of Higher Learning and Training, Nobuhle Mqabane, has condemned the ongoing killings in institutions of higher learning in the country. She was delivering the department's budget vote in Parliament.
All these tragic gun violence-related deaths destabilizes our institutions of higher learning communities and families, as well as the broader academic community. This violence forces our institution to spend resources on security measures, resources that could be more productively applied to academic investments. I, as the Minister of Higher Education, condemn this violence in the strongest terms because now our institutions are becoming more unsafe. Despite this violence, our commitment remains steadfast to build a post-school education and training system that is inclusive, equitable.
The MK Party's chief whip in Parliament, Colleen Makubele, says they're working at restoring the party's image. This after reports that there's a petition doing the rounds among MK Party MPs for her removal. During a press briefing at Parliament, both Makubele and the party's parliamentary leader, John Klope, disputed the existence of such a petition. Makubele says the incident has dented the party's image.
It has created a shock in our caucus. It has dented our image as a caucus, and that's what we want to work to restore right now and to ensure that something like this never ever happens again in the manner that it has happened. It is regrettable indeed.
The City of Cape Town says additional resources have been deployed to Mitchell's Plain on the Cape Flats following multiple shooting incidents in the area today. The city's JP Smith says 60 members from LEAP, the Metro Police Tactical Response Unit, and the Traffic Services Roadblock Unit have been made available. He's called on anyone with information about the shootings to contact police. The Secretary-General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, has on his X account sent his party's condolences to the family of the former Deputy President David Mabuza. He passed away today at the age of 65. That's our top story. I'll be back with headlines at 5:30 p.m. For SAFM News, I'm Greg Hoos.
In your sports this hour, Banyana all geared up for the Black Queens. Pollard relishes Bog Flaha flight, and Djokovic defeats Evans. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Vosloorus is where a crash is reported before Leondale Road. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. In KZN, the M4 southbound has a crash reported before the M7, and the N3 eastbound has a stationary truck after Market Road. In Cape Town, the N7 southbound in Dunoon has a fatal crash reported after Malibongwe Drive, and Voortrekker Road eastbound slow moving through Maitland. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The Teranga Lionesses know the importance of a win in their WAFCON opener. However, the Congolese also have their undivided attention on 3 points. This is the Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Do not miss out on Senegal versus Democratic Republic of Congo this Sunday, 6 July at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport DTT Channel 4. Then at 4 p.m. on S3 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Nelson Mandela once said, "There can be no greater gift than that of giving one's time and energy to helping others without expecting anything in return."
What's your Mandela Day game plan this year? Why not lace up those sneakers and hit the ground running at our annual Mandela Day Walk and Run on July 19th at the DP World Wanderers Stadium, Ilovo. You can walk 5Ks, run 10 and 21Ks, and still have enough energy to have fun. It's a whirlwind of fun and laughter, all for a fantastic cause. Every cent goes to support the excellent work of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Enter on mandeladay.com or register for the virtual race on fundnation.org/Nelson Mandela. See you there.
The National Arts Festival is back. South Africa's biggest celebration of the arts is on. From the 26th of June to the 6th of July, Makhanda becomes the stage for South Africa's boldest theatre, dance, music, arts, comedy, and more. Experience the creative energy, markets, exhibitions, and many surprises. It's where the country comes to create and the world takes notice. Browse the program and book now at nationalartsfestival.co.za. Own it, celebrate it, be there. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, still to come. We will, in fact, we'll chat to Vuyo Zungula, leader of the ATM party, effectively giving the case for South Africa changing its name, the country, to the Republic of Azania. By the way, if you did not hear that first conversation I had with Pitika Ntuli, listen to that. It's up as a podcast. We also had the chat with Fasiya Hassan regarding the appointment of the new Deputy Chief Justice, also up as a podcast. In fact, all the interviews we do, they're up as a podcast and they get on there very, very quickly. They post it on social media, on the X platform or Twitter, and also you'll find it, very importantly, put up on the SAFM radio website. Just go safm.co.za. So we'll talk about that, and I'll certainly get to your calls too. But let's, however, talk, and I wonder what else you want to talk about. Do you have anything to say regarding the passing away of David Mabuza, the one-time Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa? Let's, however, stay with another issue. The South African Police Services says it is encouraged, after receiving more than 185,000 new applications for South Africans, or from South Africans. That means the applications, 185,000 for 5,500 jobs. And I understand the majority of them are women. So let's try and understand what this means. Is there a trend we can pick up from this with the Brigadier Athlenda Mate, who was the SAPS national spokesperson. Athlenda, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse. Hi. Athlenda, do I have you there?
Yes, a very good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity.
Much appreciated. Right, so it's 185,000 applications for 5,500 police jobs or jobs in the SAPS. I understand that, when I say your department, your service, you are delighted. Is it a case of, why are you delighted? Is it a case of delighted so many people want to get in to the SAPS, or is it not a cause for concern of so many people being unemployed that they would want to get onto anything?
Look, there's two sides of it. It's also gives us a picture of the level of unemployment in our country, which is quite concerning. But it's also an opportunity for us to also get a larger pool from the young people of this country between the ages of 18 and 35. But I must say, this is nothing new for us. I mean, this is day 3. It's exactly 72 hours since we advertised the e-recruitment, or we launched the e-recruitment system. We are standing at more than 334,000 applications. Nothing new. Last year, by the end of the 2-week period, we had more than 1 million applications. The previous year, 600,000.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
this year we are more transparent because about the number of applicants, because we get a lot of, I've went through the whole process, or I applied, I'm never called, and so on, and I never make it on, and people think that, maybe there's some sort of discrepancies in the whole process. So we are trying to say, listen, there's actually a lot of people, a lot of young people that want to join the police service, but unfortunately, not everyone will get a spot, and that's why we have announced that this year we are following a more targeted approach, because we have to take into cognizance that we have a shortage of detectives, we've got a shortage of skilled, personnel. So we need to then go into the targeted recruitment, where we are focusing on the graduates, law graduates, policing graduates, your IT, your forensic science experts, and so on, that are unemployed and so on, or some that just want to join from other entities and want to join the police, because there is a need to capacitate the police service so that we are able to respond to our mandate.
All right, so you're saying, to confirm, that 185,000 figure is actually outdated already. It's gone up to 600,000. It could well, based on last year, then could hit the 1 million. When is your deadline?
Our deadline is on the 18th of July, and we are, if it's day 3 already and we have already passed the 334,000 mark, it means by tomorrow morning we'll be standing at 500,000 applications. Quite concerning, but for us it means we get a larger pool to choose from, to the young people that really want to join and make a difference in terms of the preventing and combating crime in our country.
Now, how do you know? Interesting you mentioned about, people in forensics and lawyers, and I think the reasons are obvious why you may well want to favor them, right? Are you getting that type of applicant in your pool?
Are we getting,
that type of applicant, people coming from, legal and forensic backgrounds, means specialists maybe that they've achieved that specialization elsewhere and they want to join the SAPS. Are you getting that sort of applicant?
Absolutely. It's not the first time that we are getting graduates. For the past 3 years, I think it's more than half of it's 30,393. More than half are graduates. You've got your law graduates, your policing. Last month we had our June 16 campaign. The whole of the month we dedicated it to young people in the service that are at the stations, and most of them are in possession of your degrees, your diploma, some even master's level. So we are seeing a lot of graduates, skilled young people out there that want to join the police, that want to make a difference in this country.
What about, the other side of it, which is there's this oft-repeated argument that there are so many problems in the police service because these, the members of the police service are incompetent, they're unqualified, they don't do their jobs, they're very easy to be on the take, therefore, in terms of corruption. I know it's a blanket statement, right? But we hear that all the time, and we know that there are many examples of police men and women who just fall prey to that. How do you sift through that process to ensure that you do raise the bar?
Look, like I've indicated, following the more targeted approach in terms of getting the graduates and so on. But remember, after applying, you go through a very rigorous process where you first go to the psychometric and integrity test, where they test your honesty, they test your capabilities and so on, mental thinking and mental capacity and so on. You then go through the fitness assessments. You then, after that, if you are successful, you go through your medicals and so on. So it's quite a long process with your experts that are managing each step of the way, so hoping that at the end we get, quality as opposed to quantity. So there's a lot that we put into ensuring that we get the best candidates, we get quality young people to join the service. But most importantly, it's all about passion. We need to pick up that passion during this process because this is a thankless job. Without the passion, you won't be able to survive in policing because every day it's a new thing. But in terms of those that are involving themselves in corrupt activities, we've got systems in place. I mean, I think in the last 5 years, more than 2,000 police officers were dismissed. So there are those mechanisms in place to root out wrongdoing.
What about, now this may not be directly your question to answer, but you do know that, crime flourishes in the midst of poverty, right? Besides those that sort of take on crime as a career, and I'm talking about, the white-collar crime, but it does flourish in the midst of poverty. And we do have huge poverty issues in our country. So these numbers, I mean, we're making the assumption, as you said, it could be 500,000, it could be 1 million people applying for 5,500 jobs. I mean, as a reflection of the desperation of South African people living in the country, what does that tell you? And I know it's not a direct answer in terms of the running of the SAPS, but even therein lies the problem, isn't it? Just the mass numbers of people who are unemployed.
Look, the reality is that we are starting to see by the number of applications that there is a large pool of young people in the country that are unemployed. But on the positive side, I think for the SAPS in the last 3 years, we took 30,393 young people in this country. I think in 3 years, we trained 10,000 each year. So we made a difference. We contributed to the employment, to their employment in terms of ensuring that obviously the stability and so on. But we are playing our part, and this year as well, 5,500 young people, those that are successful, will also join our ranks. So I think we are one of the departments that are contributing largely to ensure that we reduce the unemployment.
We may just have lost you on that point. But okay, I think that's where we can leave it. Brigadier Athlenda Mathe trying to reduce unemployment in service to the South African Police Service, which really is in service of the country. This is the National Pulse.
A stage awaits, not for applause, but for possibility. For over 40 years, Standard Bank has championed the arts. And at the National Arts Festival, we don't just watch talent rise, we help grow it. Through our Standard Bank Young Artist Winners, raw voices find power, unseen stories take the spotlight, and what begins as a dream grows into a legacy. Join us in Makhanda for the festival. Standard Bank, proud lead sponsor of B20 South Africa, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
They all believe they will be crowned champions, but gold medallions are reserved for the best of them all. It is the incredible clash of the 12 African women's national teams. Catch all the 24 matches of the Cap Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide with me, KG Mweketi. because where words fail, music speaks.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, and here's a comment, Ashraf, that figure versus the availability of jobs in the SAPS confirms the dire strait of unemployment. I think a point that we made, as the spokesperson said, it's actually going to shoot up, well, based on last year, 1 million. So 500,000 is like a given in a matter of days, right? Here's another I wish from Andile. I wish they can employ more men policemen simply because they don't see women police on the ground. We don't see police women on the ground doing patrols. Maybe they stay in the office from Andile. Okay, somebody's going to come back and say something about that. By the way, if you want to talk about David Mabuza, loved, admired by some, criticized by others too for a whole range of reasons, you certainly can do that. In the meantime, G20 is one of the issues we've touched on. Here's it.
Ashraf, good afternoon. The feature of the G20 in your show is a very good initiative, very informative, very insightful, thought-provoking, and it is educational. Thanks to you and your team. Keep up the good work.
Well, appreciate the feedback. And it is an entire team, actually on both sides, SAFM and Channel Africa, that puts that together. But you're right about the information, and that's really the purpose, I think, going up to November to get a good understanding of the issues that South Africa are affected by directly in terms of putting together a G20 summit. So very informative. I completely concur. Here's one on the MK party.
Hey, Mr. Aja, how are you? And good afternoon, my guru. Hey, I'm laughing regarding the MK party. Viva MK party, viva! We pay to Baba Zuma. No Baba Flope. Amen.
Well, your laughing is making me laugh as well. Yeah, that's the laugh. You can bottle that one.
South Africa, geographically correct, a country found in the southern tip of Africa. Azania, to me, sound heavy, sort of ugly. Livi, Lelek, very much ugly. We are better off South Africans.
Okay. Would there be a scope for a nickname, Azania, which in many ways it is, Azania, or even Mzansi? And that's like the nickname that people speak about colloquially. I mean, you could do that, can't you? Or is that being too incorrect in terms of the way you see it?
Good evening, Ashraf. Jack Omaya from Free State Agri. Ashraf, regarding Brigadier Linda's report now of unemployment, the South African Police Service is not there to create employment. The South African Police Service is there to make sure that the right people are employed to do the job properly. We've got the same problem in the Free State with the Department of Roads. Their KPA is how many jobs are created, but actually they should be working on how many kilometers of roads are maintained and repaired. I think our government is obsessed with job creation, where they should rather be creating the right jobs, making sure they do their work, not be a job creator of preference. The government's role is not to create jobs. The government's role is to create the enabling environment so that the private sector can create the jobs, that the right people get the work. Thank you very much.
Thanks, but I'm missing something about what you're saying, because I don't think the SAPS's role is to create jobs, but they do need to have jobs or place people to be able to carry out the work that they do. So they're doing it 5,000 people annually. That's great, isn't it? 5,000 people will be employed soon. That's fabulous. You are right. They can't solve the country's problems by job creation. That would be government and business and others to create employment. But in this case here, it does tell you, one, they've got 5,000 jobs on offer. Number two, it does tell you how many people want jobs. If 1 million people apply for 5,000 jobs, as they did last year, wow.
Ashraf, those posts you get in only when you have connections, Ashraf. Trust me, you get in when you have connections. You're going to find a Madala there, some 40-year-old man with a big belly. You won't even understand how they passed fitness. Yet they tell you they need people that are fit there. But when you look at these new recruits, you ask yourself, when did this person even make it to fitness testing? So connections. It's very sad. So many applications. It's very sad.
Hey, you seem to know, like you need to be connected, but my mind is on your image of, you said, a Madala, a 40-year-old Madala with a big belly, and that's what I'm trying to place. This 40-year-old young girl you call Madala with a big belly. Oh my goodness. But no, I can't comment about you saying you need to know someone. I think the numbers tell you when you have 1 million people applying, you're going to get so many people who are disappointed, isn't it? Let's talk about the Republic of Azania right after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so we had the earlier conversation with Pitika Ntuli and giving his thoughts as why, and he sort of invoked the point that spiritually it's the right thing to do, to drop the name South Africa formally, officially, and replace it with the name, well, as per the ATM party, the Republic of Azania. Let's get the thoughts then of Vuyo Zungula, who's the leader of the ATM party in Parliament. Vuyo, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much. Greetings to yourself and all of your listeners.
Thank you. Now, I understand that from the statement released that you're not just voicing an opinion, you actually officially are going to table this in Parliament for a name change. Why?
We have already sent, as part of the constitutional review process, our submissions. Our submissions were broad, looking at the name, the mineral wealth, the issue of the constitution, the wording of everyone, the citizen. So the question of our submission now, when it comes to the name, firstly, I think we need to remind people that a name carries a heritage, carries an identity. That is why in many of the countries in Africa where they were previously colonized, among the first things they did when they got, their freedom or independence was to change the name. For example, Upper Volta was the name that was used, and then Thomas Sankara, when he came in, he changed the name from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, which means the land of upright people. Therefore, the issue of the name carries profound identity and connection amongst the people. Now, the reality when it comes to South Africa is that the name South Africa refers to, firstly, a geographical location, which is the south of Africa. Secondly, it came from colonizers and oppressors who have got no spiritual and connection to the country. Theirs was just to loot, oppress the indigenous people, and that's it. And that is why even our forefathers, the likes of Steve Biko, Robert Sobukwe, when they were fighting against the apartheid regime, amongst others, they wanted to retain, they wanted the land to return it to its people. They wanted a case whereby the mineral wealth has to be owned by the people. And they also wanted the name of this country to be changed to Azania. That's why if you go to the grave of Steve Biko, you'll find that it's written one Azania, one nation. So that is that's the context in which we are advancing, so that South African citizens now, our citizens, must not be conditioned to accept this name. That is a stark reminder of our painful past, of our colonization and oppression and the brutal, inhumane apartheid.
All right. Now some may say, when I hear what you're saying in terms of when the name was formed, and it continued being, adopted by democratic South Africa in the negotiations of 1990s and then 94 onwards anyway, right? But by its nature, it's not a particularly derogatory name. I mean, you get other names that may well be that, right? How would a name change? I understand what you've said about Steve Biko, and I hear that, but how would that name change? For example, if I look at the Burkina Faso example you gave, the land of the upright people, how would that change, the state of South Africa's people right now, considering the turmoil that we face on a daily basis?
That question always comes up, and I always laugh at that question because, firstly, we've got a myriad of problems in our country, from unemployment, from lawlessness, from poor education system. That's why we've got different departments. So you would expect that the Department of Education must deal with the issues concerning education. So you can't go to, once they have programs dealing with the state of education, one can complain and say, but the priority is to deal with crime, because that's what the police department is there for. Go to sports, for example, we've got a sports, arts and culture department. When we find our athletes to go to these events, global events, one can say it's a waste of money because our children are dying when they are using pit toilets, because that is what, amongst others, the public works and basic education need to correct. So even though there are myriad of problems in our country, we need to full-on address all of the problems. And this is not going to take away anything from the other departments that are advancing solutions in the
okay, I hear that, right? Perhaps just in the time we have remaining as we get to news time, share with us, one thing is tabling it, right? But the other is, of course, you want to be able to win the support to be able to effect that name change. So what's required? What's your strategy?
It's a matter of engaging with the parties in parliament, who most of them on paper in terms of their manifestos and ideological papers of their parties, they do recognize the need to decolonize our country. So from that perspective, hence even the name, it's not a new name that we are bringing up. Rather, it is a name that was advanced by our forefathers who were fighting against the evil apartheid regime. So our strategy is to remind parties of what they have in terms of their ideological direction as the parties, their manifestos, that they are advancing decolonization, and part of this process of remaining in South Africa is decolonization.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Vuyo Zungula, and basically what gets his pulses racing right now is changing South Africa, the country, from the Republic of South Africa to the Republic of Azania. Are you on side with that or are you off side with that? Think about it. Here's the news headlines with Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. The Secretary-General of the ANC has sent his party's condolences to the family of the former Deputy President, David Mabuza, who passed away today at the age of 64. A looming major strike is threatening to disrupt Gautrain services as NUMSA secures a strike certificate. And US President Donald Trump's flagship tax and spending bill is heading for a final vote in the House of Representatives after hours of overnight negotiations. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Lindbergh Park has a crash near Marlborough Drive. All lanes are open. The N1 northbound in Pretoria has a crash near Rigel Avenue, and the M1 southbound is slow moving towards Boysons. In KZN, the M4 southbound has a truck crash reported before the M7 highway, and the M7 St John's Avenue is queuing through central Pinetown. In Cape Town, the M5 northbound slow moving towards Koeberg interchange, and the N1 service road outbound slow moving towards the N7 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me, we know that countdown, 5th of July, is a big day.
Yeah.
When the defending champions effectively begin defense of their trophy.
Yes, definitely. And Banyana captain Refule Jane says that a positive result in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations opener against Ghana will be key to set the tone for the rest of the campaign. The two nations will face off on Monday to kick off their Group C contest, and Jane believes that Group C is a difficult group to be put in, but they will look to take it one game at a time. Still staying with football, Gavin Hunt has reportedly agreed terms in principle to lead Durban City into the 2025-26 season, and made a decision on who will be part of his technical side. City parted company with Simo Dladla last week despite guiding the club back to Betway Premiership, and has since joined cross-town rivals Amazulu. It's understood the move was also endorsed by City's incoming technical director Ernst Middendorp, with the two said to have held earlier discussions about the plans for the club in the coming seasons. Meanwhile, Magezi FC has appointed or announced the appointment of John Maduka as the new head coach ahead of the new season. The 54-year-old takes over from Owen De Gama, who parted ways with Digwena Tsametsi last week. Maduka was lost in charge of Royal AM before the club was dissolved midway through last season, following club boss Sean Keys' financial troubles with SARS. Then SuperSport International has officially confirmed the sale of Betway Premiership side SuperSport United to Siwelele FC. The deal brings an end to an era for one of the most storied football clubs in the PSL. It has reported the new outfit will still retain Stanley Matthews as their chief executive officer and will continue training in Johannesburg while switching their home games between Bloemfontein, Gauteng and Polokwane. Then in rugby, Andre Pollard says that fierce competition for the Springbok number 10 jersey pushes him to raise his game as he prepares to face Italy at Loftus Versfeld on Saturday. The 31-year-old is back in South Africa, having signed a 2-year deal with the Vodacom Bulls and will run out on his old home ground in Pretoria for the first of the 2 tests against the Azuri. Now, Pollard is vying for the starting fly-half spot with 23-year-old Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu, a generational talent with 8 test caps, and 27-year-old Mani Lebak, who featured at the 2023 World Cup and has 19 caps.
Back, you guys, been unreal. It's been tough. It's been a tough few weeks of training, but it's been great. Listen, it's always such a privilege and an honor to be part of a squad. Whether you play or not, you just want to be part of this group. And it's been, like I said, tough, but it's been great. And we're really excited for the start of the season. It's going to be good. Yeah, Loftus is, like you said, very special place dear to my heart. It's different than any other place in the world to play rugby, and I think being the home side definitely favours you playing at Loftus. But listen, I've had some great memories there over the years. Probably say one of my best memories would be we actually lost the game versus the All Blacks in 2018, but the atmosphere and the vibe that day was just incredible. And even though we didn't come out on the winning side, it's a game that stuck with me for a while.
In the meantime, Springbok woman performance coach Swes de Bruin has named his side to face Canada at the Loftus Versfeld in Pretoria. Zinhle Mpupa and Mike Ganta will make starting returns, with Mpupa last playing for the national side last year and Ganta in 2023. Now, the most capped player in their history, Nolusindi Soboi, is going to lead the Bok women again in what will be her 51st test match. Then in tennis, 7-time champion Novak Djokovic brushed aside home favourite Daniel Evans 6-3 and 6-2 and 6-love to reach the Wimbledon third round for the 19th time, while Mira Andreeva progressed to the third round for the second time. This was after beating Lucia Bronzetti at 6-1 and 7-6. I'll be back again between 7 and 8 on Top Sport, and today we're talking all things golf, but also going to touch on Bundesliga, a team in a Bundesliga side that just gotten promoted to the second Premiership division. And why we're touching on Bundesliga is because they have a relationship with South Africa, and we'll be touching on some of the work that they're doing in the country.
Okay, England's also got a relationship with South Africa. Half the clubs in South Africa's names are United,
Yeah.
Whatever United, FC, whatever United. It comes from an English heritage. But listen, just to pick up on that Siwelele point of view, in spite of my general disagreement with these clubs being sold and name changes and heritage being lost it seems like it's a daily recurrence nowadays, right? If there's any club that's worth reviving, and I know it can't become Bloem Celtic for reasons that you've mentioned, then this is the one club that's worth reviving.
It is worth it.
That I must say.
On the one side.
Yeah. No, I'm separating the two issues. I'm saying if there's any club worth reviving.
Yeah.
We've discussed it before. That those supporters in green and white hooped, like Glasgow Celtic, by the way, from those years, they were amongst the most colourful supporters in South African football.
Absolutely.
And therein lies the tragedy in terms of how did we let it slip in terms of our heritage that the club could collapse in the first place. Yeah.
Well, one thing for sure is that fans in Bloemfontein Celtic will be singing out loud next season.
But the only problem is that they're going to have 3 different hometown venues now.
For now, until things are sorted out.
But that's a bit of a problem too.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that Stan Matthews is still going to be CEO, but I guess they're still trying to move one step at a time.
economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to the markets. As you know, as always, it's hosted by Jimmy. I was going to say Jimmy Matthews. No, certainly not Jimmy Moyara. I'm thinking about someone who's been part of the SABC for a long time. Jimmy, you want to pick up, of course, your show starts 6 to 7, but to get us there, there's an issue about the SARB that you want to pick up on, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, there certainly is. Those that haven't been keeping up with the events that have been unfolding in Parliament, there is a bill that is sitting before Parliament. It was sitting for public comment around the nationalization of the Reserve Bank. Now, this is obviously not a new conversation per se, but it is quite important that the bill is sitting before Parliament, and that bill would have some implications if it is to be passed. And it's interesting that the National Treasury, who would potentially be one of the stakeholders to benefit from a nationalized central bank, has come out to say that they don't support that idea. So we're going to look at that. I've got Professor at Gordon Institute of Business Sciences, Gibbs, Professor Adrian Savill, joining me to take a look at that a little later on in the show, because I think it's quite an important conversation to be having around the central bank and some of the central bank's mandates and all those things. We've had this conversation before, but this time around with a bill on the table, it does become a little more serious if it is to go through Parliament. Then we've also got conversations with the team at South African breweries around some of their innovative social endeavors that they've been embarking on. Of course, they're celebrating 130 years of being proudly South African as a business, and we're going to look at that with them and just get a sense of what it is they've been doing there. We've got a conversation with the team at Standard Bank as well around the world of trusts, understanding trusts better and what they can mean for estate planning. And then we've got a conversation with the CEO of the Organization Undoing Tax Abuse around the loan that the city of Joburg has secured from the African Development Bank, a 25 billion rand infrastructure loan for the city of Joburg. We're going to take a look at that, the implications of that and what we make of it. And then we're going to wrap up the show as we do on every Thursday with a small business that we're going to be spotlighting, an SME that we are going to be joined on the show by is a company called Credible. We're going to speak to them and get a sense of what it is that they do. Before we get to that, the markets have had a much better day if you're the South African Rand. Not such a good day if you are commodity prices. Commodities down on the day, with the gold price at $3,328 a fine ounce, platinum $1,380, palladium $1,149, both down about 1% in the case of platinum and palladium. Brent crude $68.50 a barrel, down a little bit, but a little higher than where we thought we would be at this point, I guess. If we look at those currencies, as I said, the Rand doing really well, 23 Rand 89 against the pound, 20 Rand 58 against the euro, 11 Rand 50 against the Australian dollar, and 17 Rand 49 against the US dollar. So gaining a lot of ground against the US dollar there. I wonder if that has anything to do with the big beautiful bill that Donald J. Trump is trying to pass on his side of the world at the moment. We're going to look into that as well on the show a little later. But if we look at equity markets, all of them in the green with the exception of the Hang Seng and the ASX in Sydney. Those were in the red. The ASX is marginally, though, about 2 basis points. Our own local markets, resources down about 0.9%, but that was offset by financials being up 1.1% and resources being, industrials being up 0.4%. As a result, the all share 1/3% up, the top 40 1/4% in the green. And if we look at Bitcoin before we go, 109,400 odd a Bitcoin would be around the 1.9 million rand mark as well, as 1.91 to be exact. Pretty much where we were yesterday because of that stronger rand. So stronger rand benefiting local markets. We'll look into this in a bit more detail. I've got Faima Adia from Momentum Investments on markets with me a little later on. But of course, that's a conversation for when we come back. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. Thanks, Enjoy. Your show 6 to 7, followed by Jimmy, who takes over from 7 to 8, talking sport on Chop Sport. This is the National Pulse.
This week on Off-Pitch Goals, Kaizer Chiefs greats and Bafana Bafana 2010 FIFA World Cup stars Renelo Letsolonyane and Siphiwe Tshabalala take on the food and beverage industry. The legendary duo own one of Soweto's most vibrant hangout spots and invite us to be the tastemakers of the inner workings of their establishment. Streaming on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturday, 5 July at 8:30 p.m. Off-Pitch Goals, where we showcase how the stars score in business. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
So interesting as we're talking about name changes. Remember that story about the Springboks and its own history and the move to change the name of the Springboks to maybe the Proteas like everybody else, all the other sporting codes, and then under pressure, and then finally Nelson Mandela, of all people, said no, it will not be changed. But what does change, or what did change, is the culture of the game, not the actual name. I'm just wondering if there's anything we can pick out from there. Right, I'm going to get to some of your calls as well. There's lots of people commenting too. There's also a comment about Didi Mabuza.
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Bata. Okay, I'm based in Mpumalanga, so condolences to David Mabuza's family and all of those who loved him. I remember during his administration, the reports that used to come out from the media, the Sunday Times, the City Press. It was a toxic administration. I mean, he himself was reported to have been poisoned. Within his inner circle, a lot of people died in Mpumalanga. I remember when it was the 2010 building of stadiums. Ew, man, it was hectic. So that is a toxic bunch. And I don't know how to feel about it. Honestly, I am heartbroken, but at the same time, I remember not so pleasant things about him.
In fact, I mean, what you're saying is what I've heard many others say. I mean, I've checked it up on some WhatsApp group, and again, people saying, oh my goodness, the former deputy died. And others said very uncomplimentary words about him, meaning there's ambivalence about how people should handle these deaths purely on a human basis. It's clearly a case of may he rest in peace. And there's sadness for his family. On the other hand, there are many who reflect on his legacy as a leader in South Africa, and so many not impressed at all.
Hi, Ashraf and the listeners of SAFM. First off, I'm one of those people who worked at the SAPS recruitment center. We recruited people. Yeah. People do apply, but the problem with the recruitment is that Indians, colored, white, they don't like to apply. The applications are very few, and I'm encouraging them actually to apply because we need them in the service. But
well, interesting if you say they don't like to apply. Why don't they like to apply? What is it, about the culture of the police service, or is it a case of they know or they think they won't get a job? Anyway, right, just having to get to calls in a second. Here's another one on name changes.
Afternoon, Ashraf. The change of name is a good thing, but now, how will it pass in the parliament? How will it pass? Because the party that brought this name is likely to be aligned with the EFF or MK. They don't even make a half of parliament. They don't even make half of parliamentarians or lawmakers there. Just a waste of time. If it was a one party who leads the country, it was better. But it's not. I think it will be Dan Kruger's off.
Well, I mean, I think the ATM leader did say there'll be lots of lobbying that needs to take place. And I agree with you. I'm very interested in the practicalities of them trying to, carry influence and try and get people of the different parties to see their view or their way of seeing things right. Okay, let's get to calls. Mike in Newlands, go for it.
Yeah, Ashraf. You had the fellow in from the G20, and I must admit, I would like to challenge him to come on again and repeat what he said, because I listened to him very carefully. I'm trying to get something I can hold on to give me a little bit of hope for the future. And I didn't understand a word he said. It was complete and utter gobbledygook. Nothing was said. But I'll tell you what stuck in my head was the police spokesman proudly telling us that there might be 1 million applicants for 5,000 jobs.
Yeah, she said that. I mean, no, not mine. She said there were 1 million last year already, so we know that.
Well, what does that tell you about the situation in our country? I mean, I know the ANC does not give a damn. Let's be honest. By the way, Ashraf, next week is the deadline for us to do something about the AGOA treatment.
No, but Mike, you see now you're saying three things in one shot, man. Well, let's talk. You spoke about the G20. Now you're talking about the jobs. I mean, I agree with you. The jobs thing it's not an SAPS answer, but it is a dire reflection of the crisis we have, and perhaps what we should be doing, even as a show, is like, seriously, what are we going to do about the jobless? Because it's a hopeless scenario. It's at 1 million to 5,000. It is probably easier to win the lottery. That type of thing. It is that difficult. So I completely hear what you have to say. So can we leave it at that because you moved on to other things, Mike? Thank you for that.
No,
right?
I don't want to move, Ashraf.
Right, let's get on to other things here, right? Peter, but Mike, I mean, I'm just saying to you, and I've said this to you before, you can't have three different conversations in one go. You've touched on a certain thing, and that's it. Let's, agree, don't agree. It's absolutely fine, and I agree with you about the job story. It's really, really sad, okay? But something has to go. Peter in Freiburg, go for it. Hello.
Yes, Ashraf, good evening. Thank you very much. Look, I just want to find out from Action SA, especially Mr. Mashaba, whom are they representing? Are they partially DA? Because when you look at their conversations these days, they are always almost 80% of agreeing with DA. The same DA that he said that DA did this and that and that. And looking at the lady speaking today, I was just confused. They use the name, the foreigners must leave, They get votes from people, they hide. At the end of the day, they come out again so that people can see that they're existing. I don't really understand.
Well, I mean, it's very clear, by the way, your point that, in fact, the current Action SA led by Herman Mashaba and the DA do not see eye to eye at all. They don't see eye to eye. In fact, their policies may be very similar, but they don't see eye to eye.
Why are all their conversations always against what the progress of South Africa? They always against supporting DA even when DA is doing something wrong. I mean,
where do they support the DA when they're doing something wrong? Yeah, but give me an example. Where do they support the DA? Where does Action SA support the DA?
Several times I've been listening to. I spend much time listening to you. Let me be honest. On the 6 to 9, I spend much time listening to these two presentations. I've heard Andy Mashaba speaking. He speaks like a saint, but he's dangerous.
All right, I hear he may be dangerous according to you. All I'm asking is, where does he support the DA? I think at the moment they may policy-wise be very similar, but they're completely at opposite ends. They don't like each other. Check it out.
But can you bring Andy Mashaba here? Let's talk to him because it's got a problem in this country more than even EFF.
All right. Okay, I hear you. When the chance comes, I mean, we do talk to him. When the chance comes, we will, when the opportunity arises and we feel we need to talk to him, we will do so. Peter in Freiburg. Let's get to Ermelo now with Sibusiso. Once again, talking about the Republic of Azania. Go for it, Sibusiso.
Ashraf, how are you doing?
I'm very well indeed. Thanks. What's your point?
Brilliant. Ashraf, we do need one way or the other to make South Africa, or belong to Africa, or be an African country. If you listen most of the time, the language of even like right now, the Trump administration working hand in hand with the AfriForum. And we have got all this Oranje. Today we have got Plainfontein. We're going to have something else in no time. Remember that recently the president was in the States. The understanding in most of the people in America is that we as Africans, we found Afrikaners here. If we change South Africa to Tanzania, yes, in Africa, okay, it will even make the Afrikaners understand that they are in Africa, not in Europe, not in Asia, nor America. So we definitely have to change this name so a message is made and is sent to the African, even the Afrikaner for
Okay.
this AfriForum guys.
I hear you, but I mean,
Change
why
the-
would you pander to the message of one part of the community, when you need to be speaking to the vast majority of South Africans? I hear you. Sibusiso got that, but he's saying it definitely needs to change, right? Here's an interesting one. The South African Indian and white unemployment rate is 12% and 8% respectively. That's a definition of full unemployment in other jurisdictions. I think you mean full employment, right? With whites especially, hence fewer applications for SAPS jobs from Felix in Midrand. Okay, interesting point. But still, I mean, you're going to get people who may not find a certain, job appealing to them, whatever it is. And you do get demographics that find some jobs more appealing to others. Here's a comment on Mashaba.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Let me assist you, Mashaba and DA. The recent vote of Simelane that the DA rejected, Mashaba supported DA. Just yesterday, Mashaba supported the DA.
No, but I hear you. But what I'm saying is, do they always support each other? I mean, the best example of parties that always support each other right now is actually the ANC and the DA in the GNU. There are examples where parties do vote with each other on a certain policy, but doesn't mean they actually support each other. I did say to you, in fact, earlier that the Action SA and the DA's policies may be very, very similar, but politically, at this point in time, personality-wise, are they really in sync? Something's got to change for that to happen.
Hi, good day. My name is Bernd from Durban. Just listening to the news there, it said that the American lawmakers worked throughout the night to make changes and negotiations. And I just wondered if our members of parliament ever do something like that, work through the night, what type of hours they keep. Thank you, Bernd.
My gut feeling is they actually do. We just don't realize it. In caucus meetings, in parliamentary portfolio committee meetings, they work really, really hard. They put in tremendous amount of hours. They really do. Okay?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, if you wake up tomorrow and you find out your name has never been Ashraf, you were stolen as a baby, and your name is Jacob, irregardless of the cause, you would want to change back to who you really are. And that is where we find ourselves currently in South Africa. We have to go back to our original name, regardless of the costs. Mbushe here.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, your point has got me thinking, and I'll probably think about it over supper. On the other hand, for now, I am thinking about the sound of Jacob Garda, host of the National Pulse. You just got me thinking. Thank you for that, right? Here's another.
Good evening, Ashraf, and the listeners of SAFM. This is Nati from Cape Town. Ashraf, with regard to the name change of our country, let us do it, man. I think it will help us. Remember, in South Africa, we never thought that black people can play a fly half position in rugby and represent Springboks. Mani Lebok did it, Feinberg Ngomezulu is doing it, and so many others who have done it when they were playing SAA side. So let's do it. Azania.
Okay, let's do it. That's like Nike talking, but anyway, I hear you. Your point has been very, very clear. It's actually amazing just how many people, good or bad, for or against, I'll say A or nay, do have strong views about the discussion around the Republic of South Africa and the Republic of Azania.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the team. Happy Matiba month. I would support the name change of South Africa to Azania. Thank you, PK Peter Maritzburg.
Well, PK certainly got it. Here's another.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Ashraf, growing up, I used to hear this name Azania. I'm from Zimbabwe, but there were musicians from Zimbabwe who were singing about what was happening in South Africa at the time, the war that was happening in South Africa between the blacks and the whites, and they were talking about Azania. They were not talking about South Africa. They were saying, let's go and help Azania, not South Africa. So we know South Africa is Azania.
Okay, that's your point. We know it's Azania. Interesting point that you bring up. Yeah, I mean, certainly not the first time we've heard the name. I mean, you know that. I think AZAPO was premised on that, the Azanian People's Organization, right?
Ashraf Mzwengosi here in Springfontein. Yes, we do need a name change. And it is very important that we change the name to what it was before the oppressor came. Remember, this country comes from Union of South Africa after it was ruled by the British royalty, and now they named it South Africa when it was ruled by the politicians. But let's go back to the roots of Azania.
Well, some may say, as you've heard, bring in the Khoi and the San, because it was never one country, was it?
Good afternoon, Ashraf and fellow listeners. You know, when it comes to the issue of name changing, I had something to say, but I immediately just thought of Donald Trump saying, South Africa. Imagine him saying, Tanzania.
You make me laugh. Listen, just two things to end up with. Tomorrow we have the fireside chat. Tomorrow is Friday, right? It certainly is. Fireside chat tomorrow. We chat to the young Afrikaner, Pieter Kriel, who will talk about his views on South Africa and Afrikaners. Don't forget that, 5 to 6. And just to end with, there was a poll today which said that 40% of voters say they are likely to support Elon Musk's America Party. And that was tweeted out, okay? And, of course, one person, quote, tweeted it saying, encouraging. And his name is Elon Musk. Enjoy your evening. We'll do it all again tomorrow. It is the National Pulse. Let's get the news. Here's Greg House.